Do you ever feel trapped in your own mind, unable to sleep because your thoughts just won't stop racing? Do you find yourself stuck on the same thought over and over, making even the smallest decisions feel impossible? If so, today you're going to discover an insight that could change the way you think forever, straight from Carl Jung. Imagine it's 2 a.m. and you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Your mind keeps replaying every mistake you made today, analyzing every conversation, every word, every glance. You've tried everything: TV, scrolling through social media, even counting sheep, but nothing works. You feel exhausted, frustrated, and stuck. This is what overthinking feels like, a trap that keeps you imprisoned in your own mind. But here's the surprising part. The key to escaping this trap isn't another productivity hack, and it's not some generic think positive advice. The real key comes from understanding yourself, a concept that Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, explained decades ago. By the end of this video, I'll share a simple exercise you can do tonight that might calm your mind like nothing else. But first, you need to understand why overthinking happens in the first place. Before we dive into Carl Jung's advice, let's take a moment to understand what overthinking really is, because most people confuse it with normal thinking. Thinking is productive. Thinking helps you plan, solve problems, and make decisions. Overthinking, however, is like running the same mental loop over and over, analyzing everything from multiple angles, but never reaching a conclusion. It's like being stuck in a mental hamster wheel. You think you're moving forward, but you're really just burning energy and creating stress for yourself. And here's the thing, overthinking is more common than most people realize. Studies show that over 70% of adults report feeling trapped in repetitive, uncontrollable thought patterns at least once a week. That's not just a small group of stressed out people. That's most of us. You might even recognize yourself in this right now, lying awake at night, worrying about the past, fearing the future, or endlessly analyzing your relationships, your work, or even your own feelings. I know exactly how that feels, because I've been there too. You wake up exhausted, even if you slept for hours. Your mind feels heavy, crowded with thoughts that seem to have a life of their own. Every small decision feels monumental because you've convinced yourself that analyzing it 100 times will somehow make the right choice obvious. But here's the harsh truth. Overthinking doesn't make decisions easier. It makes life harder. Now, I don't want you to feel hopeless. That's not why we're here. The fact that you're watching this video means you're already taking the first step toward breaking the cycle. That's the power of awareness. Once you understand what's happening in your mind, you can start to change it. You can start to regain control over your thoughts rather than letting them control you. And that's exactly what Carl Jung helps us do. Jung's ideas might seem complex at first glance, but at their core, they are profoundly simple and practical. Jung believed that overthinking is often a symptom, not the problem itself. It's your unconscious mind trying to communicate with you, a signal that something inside you needs attention. In other words, your mind isn't trying to punish you by making you overthink. It's trying to guide you. Once you learn how to listen, overthinking can transform from a source of stress into a source of insight. Here's why this matters now more than ever. Our modern world is designed to keep us in a state of constant mental activity. Notifications ping every few minutes. Social media bombards us with opinions, comparisons, and conflicts. Work never stops, emails never stop, and the pressure to do more is relentless. In such an environment, overthinking isn't just common, it's almost inevitable. The question isn't whether you'll overthink, but how you'll respond when it happens. And that's where urgency comes in. Every moment you spend trapped in overthinking is a moment of your life you can't get back. It drains your energy, steals your focus, and keeps you from living fully in the present. That's why it's so important to address it now, rather than waiting for a perfect time when you'll somehow magically stop overthinking on your own. The sooner you understand the root cause, the sooner you can reclaim your mental clarity, your creativity, and your peace of mind. But here's the exciting part. You don't need to overhaul your life, meditate for hours, or follow complicated routines. What you need is understanding, perspective, and a few simple, actionable steps. And that's exactly what we're going to explore. By the end of this video, you won't just know why you overthink. You'll know what to do about it and how to take immediate steps to calm your mind, make decisions more easily, and regain control of your life. Let's also be clear. This isn't about suppressing your thoughts or pretending problems don't exist. Overthinking is often your mind's way of signaling that there's something unresolved, a fear, a decision, a regret, or an unmet need. Ignoring it completely can backfire, creating more stress and anxiety. Instead, what Carl Jung teaches us is how to not acknowledge your thoughts without letting them dominate you, how to observe your mind like a scientist, and how to let your unconscious guide you instead of trapping you. Imagine your mind as a crowded room, filled with people all talking at once. Overthinking is like trying to listen to every single voice at the same time. Exhausting, cheo, and impossible. What Jung advises is simple. Step back, identify the voices that matter, and focus on the insights they offer. This creates mental space, allowing you to act with clarity rather than react with anxiety. And here's something even more encouraging. Once you understand the mechanics of overthinking, you'll realize that you're not broken. You're not lazy, weak, or incapable. Overthinking is a sign of intelligence, self-awareness, and sensitivity. The challenge is learning how to manage it. The good news is that management is entirely possible, and it doesn't require external validation, expensive therapy, or extreme lifestyle changes. It requires only understanding, mindfulness, and strategic practice. So, if you've ever found yourself spiraling into doubt, stuck, replaying conversations, decisions, or mistakes, take a deep breath. You're not alone. And more importantly, this isn't something you are destined to live with forever. The insights you're about to discover from Carl Jung will help you see your mind differently. They will give you tools to break free from the endless loops of overthinking and start thinking clearly, calmly, and confidently. By the time we're done, you'll be equipped with practical strategies to stop overthinking in its tracks. You will also understand why your mind works the way it does, giving you a sense of empowerment that is rare in a world full of stress and distraction. And remember that secret exercise I promised in the first section? That's coming up too, a simple practice that can help you feel calmer tonight, even if you've been overthinking for years. But before we get there, you need to understand the deeper reasons why overthinking happens, why it's so persistent, and why traditional quick fixes often fail. Once you grasp this, you'll see why Jung's approach isn't just theory. It's practical wisdom for anyone who struggles with racing thoughts, indecision, or mental overwhelm. So take a moment, settle in, and let's explore this together. You're about to learn not just how to stop overthinking, but how to transform your mind from a source of stress into a source of clarity, creativity, and insight. And the best part? You can start today with simple, actionable steps that don't require hours of meditation, complicated routines, or self-criticism. Now that we've set the stage, let's get to the heart of the problem. Why do we overthink? Understanding this is crucial because if you don't know why something happens, it's nearly impossible to fix it. Overthinking isn't just a habit. It's a mental pattern with deep roots in how your brain processes information, emotions, and uncertainty. At its core, overthinking is your mind's attempt to predict and control the future. Humans are wired to anticipate threats, plan ahead, and make decisions that maximize safety and success. In theory, this is brilliant. It's why we've survived as a species. But in practice, this survival mechanism often goes into overdrive. Suddenly, every choice, every conversation, and every minor mistake becomes magnified. Your mind begins to spin scenarios. What if I fail? What if I said the wrong thing? What if this choice ruins everything? And before you know it, you're trapped in a loop of endless possibilities, each one more stressful than the last. Think about it like this. Your brain is like a powerful computer, designed to analyze millions of bits of information. But unlike a computer, it doesn't have a simple off switch. So, when it encounters uncertainty, it keeps running simulations endlessly. That's why overthinking often feels like a mental treadmill. You're working hard, but you're not moving forward. You're analyzing, reanalyzing, and replaying events in a way that generates stress rather than solutions. But overthinking isn't just about decision-making. Often it's tied to deeper emotional needs. For example, people overthink because they crave control. The idea of uncertainty feels unsafe, and so the mind tries to predict outcomes to regain a sense of security. Others overthink because they fear failure, rejection, or judgment. Every decision, every interaction becomes a test. Will I succeed? Will I be liked? Will I look foolish? And this constant internal questioning creates mental exhaustion. There's also a neurological side to this. When you overthink, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and planning, becomes hyperactive. This sounds like a good thing, but in reality, it can flood your mind with too many possibilities, making decision-making harder rather than easier. At the same time, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, reacts as if you're facing a real threat, releasing stress hormones like cortisol. This combination of hyperactive reasoning and heightened stress is what makes overthinking feel both endless and emotionally draining. Another reason we overthink is because of modern life. Social media, instant communication, and constant comparison make our brains work overtime. Every notification, every like, and every comment triggers our brain's reward system and our fear response simultaneously. Suddenly, we're not just worrying about our own choices. We're worried about how others perceive us, how we compare to everyone else, and how we're performing in a world that never stops moving. No wonder overthinking is practically a modern epidemic. Overthinking also thrives on ambiguity. When something is uncertain or unresolved, your mind will keep circling it. That's why people obsess over past mistakes or future possibilities. The mind hates incomplete loops, so it tries endlessly to complete the story, even when no definitive answer exists. The problem is, most life situations aren't binary. There's no single right choice or guaranteed outcome. Your mind keeps spinning in search of certainty that simply doesn't exist. And here's a key insight. Overthinking is often a sign that you're deeply invested in your own growth and self-awareness. People who overthink tend to care deeply about their actions, their relationships, and their impact on the world. This is actually a positive trait. It shows thoughtfulness and intelligence. The challenge is learning how to manage this trait so it doesn't become destructive. Now let's connect this to a real-life example. Imagine you're preparing for a big presentation. You've spent days planning, rehearsing, and researching, but instead of feeling ready, your mind keeps replaying every possible mistake. What if I forget my lines? What if someone asks a question I can't answer? What if they think I'm unprepared? The more you think about it, the more anxious you feel, and the less confident you become. In this scenario, overthinking doesn't help you. It sabotages your performance. Here's the crucial takeaway. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It's not laziness, weakness, or incompetence. It's a natural mental process that, without guidance, can become harmful. The real problem isn't thinking itself. It's thinking without awareness. Most people overthink because they haven't learned to observe their thoughts, separate themselves from them, or manage them consciously. And this is where Carl Jung's insights become powerful. Jung understood that overthinking often arises when we are disconnected from our deeper selves, from what he called the unconscious mind. Your unconscious stores your instincts, emotions, desires, and wisdom that your conscious mind can't always access. When you ignore these deeper signals, your conscious mind tries to compensate by overanalyzing. In other words, overthinking is often your mind's attempt to solve problems that can't be solved purely by logic. Problems that require introspection, self-awareness, and emotional processing. So why do traditional advice methods, like just relax or stop thinking, often fail? Because overthinking isn't just a habit, it's a signal from your unconscious. Simply trying to push thoughts away or ignore them doesn't address the root cause. In fact, suppression often makes the thoughts more persistent. That's why strategies like meditation, journaling, and mindful reflection, which Jung implicitly advocated through his emphasis on self-awareness and shadow work, can be far more effective than generic productivity hacks. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. By now, you should start to recognize the signs of overthinking in your own life. Maybe it's replaying conversations, obsessing over decisions, fearing judgment, or feeling mentally stuck. Maybe it's the late-night anxiety, the racing thoughts, or the constant what-ifs. Understanding why this happens is the first step toward breaking free, because awareness creates choice. When you know the mechanics behind your overthinking, you can respond differently, rather than being trapped in unconscious loops. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. In the following sections, we'll go beyond understanding the problem. We'll dive into Jung's practical advice for transforming overthinking into clarity. You'll learn how to work with your unconscious mind, how to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them, and how to create simple routines that calm your mental chaos. But here's the promise. Once you start applying these principles, you'll notice subtle but profound changes. Decisions will feel easier, your mind will feel lighter, and the late-night mental spirals will lose their power. Overthinking will no longer control you. Instead, it will become a tool for insight and growth. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, offered timeless wisdom on understanding the mind, wisdom that can radically transform how you deal with overthinking. One of his most famous quotes is, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This simple sentence carries profound insight. The solution to overthinking isn't found in external advice, self-help books, or productivity hacks. The solution is found within yourself through observation, reflection, and conscious engagement with your thoughts. Jung believed that our minds have two layers, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind is what you actively think about, plan for, and worry over. The unconscious mind holds the emotions, instincts, and desires that you might not be aware of, yet they influence almost every thought, every decision, and every fear. Overthinking happens when your conscious mind tries to solve problems that actually live in your unconscious. Essentially, your mind is working overtime, trying to fill in gaps and make sense of hidden patterns. Understanding this gives us the key to breaking the cycle. Instead of struggling to silence thoughts, you learn to observe them, understand them, and work with them. Let's break Jung's advice into practical steps that you can apply immediately. Starting with something deceptively simple. Observing your thoughts. The first step is learning to notice your thoughts without judgment. Many people think they need to stop thinking to stop overthinking. Jung would argue the opposite. Stop resisting your mind. Sit quietly for a few minutes and simply watch what crosses your consciousness. Don't try to solve anything. Don't argue with your thoughts. Don't label them as good or bad. Just observe. Here's a practical exercise. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Close your eyes and pay attention to your mind as if it were a movie playing on a screen. You might notice worries about work, doubts about relationships, or random memories popping up. The goal isn't to stop them, it's to notice them. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. Perhaps certain thoughts always appear at night, or certain worries arise when you talk to a specific person or check your phone. Simply observing these patterns is powerful because it starts to separate you from your thoughts. Instead of being trapped in them, you become the observer. Observation creates a subtle shift in consciousness. Jung emphasized that awareness is the first step toward transformation. When you notice your thought patterns, you gain insight into what drives your overthinking. And insight, as Jung believed, is the foundation of psychological freedom. Once you've practiced observing your thoughts, the next step is detachment. Overthinking is often fueled by obsession with outcomes, whether it's worrying about failing a project, being judged by others, or making the wrong choice. Jung understood that this anxiety stems from identifying too strongly with future results, rather than the present moment. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring about results. It means you focus on what you can control, your actions, your effort, your intentions. A simple phrase can help anchor this mindset. I will do my best, the rest will unfold. Repeat this whenever your mind starts spiraling. Over time, this practice reduces the power of anxious thoughts because you are no longer feeding them with imagined catastrophes. Try a small experiment tonight. Before going to sleep, think about something that usually triggers your overthinking. Acknowledge the outcome you fear, and then mentally step back. Say to yourself, I can influence my actions, but I cannot control everything. That is not my responsibility. This small act of mental detachment signals to your brain that it's safe to stop running endless simulations. Jung believed that once you stop trying to force certainty, your mind naturally aligns with clarity and wisdom from within. Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming your true self, is deeply connected to the idea of present action. Overthinking happens when the mind fixates on what might happen, rather than what you can do now. Instead of worrying, focus on the actionable steps in front of you. Break tasks into small, concrete actions. For example, instead of thinking, what if my project fails? Think, today I will write one section, review it, and make notes. By anchoring yourself in the present, you stop feeding the mental loops that cause overthinking. Each small action is a step toward alignment with your conscious and unconscious self. Jung emphasized that personal growth and mental clarity come from this harmony. Action becomes a bridge between thought and reality, reducing the power of imagined scenarios that never actually exist. Another practical tip: create a short action list each morning. Include just 3 tasks you can complete today. Focus on these tasks and treat them as experiments rather than ultimate determinants of your success or failure. This technique trains your mind to shift from endless rumination to purposeful engagement. Jung valued the written word as a tool for understanding the unconscious mind. Journaling is a powerful method to make your thoughts visible and conscious. When you write, you create a dialogue with yourself, a safe space to explore fears, doubts, and desires. Begin by setting aside 10 minutes each day. Write down whatever thoughts dominate your mind. Don't censor yourself. Then ask a key question. Why am I thinking this? Answer honestly. You might uncover surprising insights: a fear of judgment, a longing for approval, or unresolved emotions from the past. By putting these thoughts on paper, you externalize them. They no longer control you invisibly. They become objects of observation and understanding. Over time, journaling can reveal patterns and triggers you might never notice otherwise. It's a form of active self-reflection that bridges conscious thinking and unconscious insight, a fundamental Jungian principle. Some people even draw or create symbols in their journals to represent recurring emotions, turning abstract anxiety into tangible forms they can analyze. Jung believed that the unconscious communicates through symbols. Our minds often think in imagery rather than words, and visualizing your worries can be an effective way to reduce their power. Imagine your anxious thoughts as clouds drifting in the sky, shadows on a wall, or objects in a room. By giving shape to your fears, you can mentally step back and gain perspective. For example, if you are worried about an upcoming presentation, visualize your anxiety as a small, dark cloud. Picture it floating away or shrinking until it no longer feels overwhelming. This exercise doesn't erase the worry, but it shifts your relationship with it. Instead of being swallowed by your thoughts, you become a conscious observer who can manage them calmly. Another approach is to assign symbols to recurring thought patterns. Maybe self-doubt appears as a small knot, perfectionism as a heavy weight, or fear of judgment as a flickering shadow. By externalizing these patterns visually, you gain insight and control. Exactly what Jung advocated in his exploration of the psyche. The beauty of Jung's advice is that it's practical, yet deeply transformative. Start small. Night. Try the first 2 steps. Observing your thoughts and practicing detachment. Don't rush through them. Allow your mind to experience the shift. You may notice a sense of calm, even if only slightly, by morning. These small experiments build momentum, leading to more profound changes as you incorporate journaling, present-focused action, and symbolic visualization. Remember, overthinking is not a flaw. It is a signal from your mind asking for conscious attention. By following Jung's principles, you learn to work with your thoughts rather than against them. You cultivate awareness, detachment, and alignment with your authentic self. This is not a quick fix, it's a lifelong practice. But the rewards are profound: mental clarity, emotional balance, and a deeper connection to your inner wisdom. So tonight, don't try to stop your thoughts. Watch them. Detach from the need for control. Focus on what you can do in the present. Write down your reflections. Visualize your worries. Step by step, your overthinking will lose its grip. Your mind, once a chaotic storm, can become a calm and insightful guide. By embracing Jung's guidance, you awaken to a new way of being, a state where thoughts no longer imprison you, but instead illuminate your path. Overthinking transforms from a source of stress into a source of insight, a tool for understanding yourself more deeply than ever before. Try just the first 2 steps tonight, observing your thoughts and detaching from outcomes. And notice the difference in your mind by morning. You'll see just how powerful Jung's advice can be in practice. Here's the thing. Most of us know overthinking is a problem, and we try to fight it. But often the very strategies we use to stop overthinking actually make it worse. It's like struggling in quicksand. The harder you fight, the deeper you sink. Jung was very clear about this. The unconscious mind doesn't respond well to force. It responds to awareness, patience, and acceptance. So, Before we talk about solutions, let's uncover the traps that keep so many of us stuck. The first mistake is trying to force your mind to be quiet. Have you ever told yourself, "Stop thinking, just stop," when your brain won't shut off? Of course, it doesn't work. In fact, the harder you try to silence your thoughts, the louder they get. Jung believed that the unconscious resists suppression. When you push thoughts down, they don't disappear. They retreat into the shadows, where they grow stronger. This is why people who force positivity or denial often end up feeling more anxious. The truth is, thoughts have to be observed and understood, not crushed. The second mistake is chasing distractions. Many people cope with overthinking by drowning it out with noise, endless scrolling, binge-watching, keeping busy all the time. And while distractions may give temporary relief, they never address the real problem. Jung warned that when we avoid the inner voice, it only grows louder. He compared it to a neglected child tugging at your sleeve. The more you ignore it, the more disruptive it becomes. That's why the moment you stop distracting yourself, the thoughts come rushing back with twice the intensity. Distraction delays healing, but it never delivers it. Another trap is obsessing over external solutions. How many of us search for the next productivity hack, the perfect routine, or the life-changing book that will fix our minds? Jung cautioned against this, saying, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." In other words, if you only search outward, for other people's approval, for the right system, for external validation, you'll stay trapped in dreaming. Awakening only happens when you look inward. Overthinking cannot be solved by copying someone else's life. It can only be solved by understanding your own. The fourth mistake is perfectionism disguised as problem solving. Overthinkers often convince themselves, "I'm not overthinking, I'm just being thorough, I'm preparing for every possible outcome." But in reality, this is fear wearing the mask of logic. Jung warned about this tendency of the mind to trick itself with rationalizations. You tell yourself you're just being careful, but deep down you're avoiding uncertainty. And here's the truth. Life is uncertain. You can never plan for every possible future. Trying to do so isn't wisdom, it's paralysis. Another mistake is ignoring the body. Overthinking is often treated as a purely mental issue, something happening only in your head. But Jung believed the psyche is deeply connected to the body, and when the body is neglected, the mind suffers. If you don't sleep well, eat poorly, sit all day, and overstimulate your nervous system with caffeine and screens, your brain will naturally spiral into chaos. No amount of positive thinking can override a burned-out nervous system. This is why grounding, movement, and rest are essential parts of calming the mind. Ignoring the body is ignoring half the problem. One of the subtler traps is self-criticism. Overthinkers often get caught in a double loop. First, they stress about something, then they beat themselves up for stressing about it. Why can't I just relax? What's wrong with me? Why am I always like this? Jung warned that this inner critic, the harsh, judgmental voice, keeps you from seeing the truth. Instead of insight, you get shame. Instead of clarity, you get self-blame. And as long as shame runs the show, healing cannot begin. The unconscious doesn't open to punishment, only to compassion. Here's another common pitfall: waiting for the perfect moment to change. People tell themselves, "I'll start journaling when life is less busy," or "I'll work on myself once this stressful project is over." But Jung taught that the right moment is always now. Life never stops being busy. If you wait for perfect ion, you'll wait forever. The work of self-discovery doesn't happen in a calm, ideal environment. It happens right in the middle of the storm, when you finally decide to pause, breathe, and listen to yourself. A final, and perhaps the deepest mistake, is refusing to confront the shadow. Jung believed that much of overthinking comes from unacknowledged parts of ourselves: fears, desires, memories, emotions we'd rather ignore. Many people try to heal without ever facing these shadows. They want relief without discomfort, growth without challenge. But Jung was clear. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, until you face your fears, your suppressed emotions, and your hidden motives, they will continue to control you from the shadows. Overthinking is often the mind's way of avoiding that confrontation. So here's the warning. If you try to fight overthinking with force, distraction, external fixes, perfectionism, denial, or self-criticism, you will only tighten the trap. Jung's message is not about silencing the mind, but about listening to it differently. It's about approaching your thoughts with curiosity, compassion, and courage, and learning to see what they're really pointing to. Because often, beneath the noise of overthinking lies an important message from your deeper self. And here's a truth most people don't realize. Your overthinking isn't your enemy. It's a signal that something within you needs attention, something wants to be understood. Jung would say, don't silence that voice. Befriend it, study it, learn from it, because once you do, the noise begins to quiet naturally. One of the most powerful ways to understand Carl Jung's advice is through stories. Theory can be inspiring, but it's when we see ideas applied to real life that they begin to feel possible for us too. So, let's walk through some transformations, ordinary people who felt trapped by overthinking and how Jung's wisdom guided them toward clarity. Sarah was a 32-year-old marketing professional. On paper, she looked like she had everything together. Good job, supportive partner, active social life. But at night, her mind refused to rest. She would lie awake replaying every email she sent, every meeting she attended, every word she spoke. Did I say the wrong thing? Did my boss notice that hesitation in my voice? What if I don't get promoted this year? The cycle was exhausting. Sarah tried meditation apps, sleep teas, even strict nighttime routines, but nothing worked. The more she forced herself to stop overthinking, the louder her thoughts became. Then one day, a friend handed her a book of Jung's quotes. One line struck her: "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." For the first time, Sarah realized she was always looking outward, trying to predict how others saw her, how her career would unfold, how her future would look. But she never looked inward. That night, instead of fighting her thoughts, she decided to simply observe them. She set a timer for 5 minutes and wrote down everything on her mind. No judgment, no editing, just raw thoughts. To her surprise, patterns emerged. Most of her overthinking revolved around fear of being not enough. Not smart enough, not confident enough, not perfect enough. The thoughts weren't random noise. They were signals from a deeper insecurity. Over time, Sarah kept journaling and practicing detachment from outcomes. She started saying, "I will do my best today. The rest will unfold." Slowly, her nights grew quieter. She didn't silence her mind by force. She understood it. That shift gave her peace. James was an engineering student with big dreams of starting his own company. But he never made progress because he was stuck in planning mode. He had notebooks full of business ideas, market analyses, and flowcharts. He told himself he was being thorough, but in reality, he was paralyzed. Every time he got close to starting, he spiraled into questions. What if it fails? What if I waste money? What if I'm not ready? Jung would call this the mind's trick of rationalization, fear disguised as logic. James wasn't just preparing, he was hiding from uncertainty. One day he stumbled across Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming your authentic self by aligning your inner values with your outer actions. That struck a chord. He realized he wasn't living as the person he wanted to be. His true self wanted to create, experiment, and take risks. But his overthinking self wanted guarantees, so James decided to experiment with Jung's advice. Focus on present actions instead of distant outcomes. He picked one simple step, building a prototype, and committed to finishing it within 2 weeks. No more analyzing, just action. At first, the fears screamed louder. "This won't work. You're wasting time." But he remembered Jung's wisdom. Anxiety comes from identifying too strongly with outcomes. James repeated the phrase, "I will do my best. The rest will unfold," and pushed forward. When he finished the prototype, something amazing happened. Not only did he prove to himself that he could take action, but his overthinking began to fade. The more he acted, the less power his fears had. Action, not analysis, became his medicine. What do Sarah and James have in common? They all discovered that overthinking wasn't a random curse. It was a signal pointing to fear, insecurity, avoidance, or disconnection from the self. Jung's wisdom gave them tools to respond differently. Sarah observed her thoughts and found patterns. James detached from outcomes and took action. These are ordinary people with ordinary struggles, and yet, with small shifts, their lives transformed. And here's the key takeaway. You don't need to be a psychologist, a philosopher, or a spiritual guru to apply Jung's advice. You just need the courage to pause, to look inward, and to listen. Overthinking may feel like a trap, but Jung teaches us it's actually an invitation to awaken, to know yourself, and to step into a calmer, more authentic life. We've now explored Carl Jung's wisdom and how looking inward is the key to calming the restless mind. But here's the truth. Wisdom on its own is not enough. Real change happens when knowledge turns into practice, when you bring small, consistent habits into your daily life. Overthinking doesn't disappear in one night. It fades slowly, almost quietly, as you retrain your brain through repeated actions that guide it toward focus, calm, and clarity. Think of these daily practices as mental workouts. Just as exercising your body makes you stronger, exercising your mind with intentional habits makes you calmer, more resilient, and less controlled by your thoughts. Let's begin with your mornings. How you start the day sets the tone for everything that follows. If the first thing you do is grab your phone, scroll social media, or check emails, your brain gets bombarded with information before it has even fully woken up. That flood of stimulation immediately sparks comparison, stress, and mental noise, the very conditions where overthinking thrives. Instead, imagine starting with a short morning reset ritual. You sit up in bed, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths. Then you set an intention for the day. Something as simple as, "Today I will focus on what I can control," or "Today I choose calm over your chaos." This 5-minute pause may sound small, but it tells your brain something powerful. I am in control of my thoughts, not the other way around. Over time, this ritual builds inner strength and creates space for calm thinking throughout the day. Another essential practice is to embrace single tasking. Most of us pride ourselves on multitasking, writing an email while checking messages, eating while scrolling, working while half watching something on YouTube. But what feels like efficiency is actually one of the biggest triggers for overthinking. When you split your attention across too many things, your brain struggles to keep up and begins spinning with scattered thoughts. Jung would say this happens because your conscious and unconscious are pulling in different directions. The remedy is simple but transformative. Do one thing at a time. If you are writing an email, write only that email. If you are having a conversation, give it your full attention. By single-tasking, you train your mind to stay anchored in the present, and overthinking begins to lose its grip. Journaling is another habit with incredible power to free you from mental spirals. You don't need pages of deep writing. Just 5 minutes in the evening is enough. Sit down with a notebook and write whatever comes to mind. Your worries, your to-do list, that conversation you keep replaying, or even random thoughts. Don't censor yourself. Don't edit. Just let the words flow. Then close the notebook. What you've done is release the mental clutter onto paper. Your brain no longer needs to carry it all. This exercise, which I like to call the 5-minute dump, is like tidying up your mental desk before bed. When your thoughts are neatly laid out, you sleep better and wake up clearer. But what about those moments in the middle of the day, when overthinking hits you suddenly? This is where physical orienting becomes essential. Overthinking happens in the mind, but your body can bring you back to the present. The next time you notice your thoughts racing, try this. Place your hand gently on your chest and take 3 slow breaths, focusing on your heartbeat. Or press your feet firmly into the floor and notice the ground supporting you. These small physical actions ground you instantly. They interrupt the cycle of thoughts and remind your mind that you are safe, here, and present. Over time, your body becomes a reliable anchor. You can return to any time overthinking tries to take over. Another place where overthinking sneaks in is decision-making. You know that feeling. Replaying every possible outcome, analyzing endlessly, terrified of making the wrong choice. This is where you need what I call the decision deadline rule. Give yourself strict time limits to decide. For small things like what to eat or wear, 30 seconds. For medium choices like buying something or scheduling plans, 24 hours. And for big decisions like career moves or relationships, 7 days. Once the time is up, commit and move forward. Jung believed that clarity comes through action, not endless rumination. By setting deadlines, you retrain your brain to act instead of loop. Here's another surprisingly powerful habit: scheduling a worry appointment. It may sound strange, but it works. Choose a specific 15-minute window each day, say from 6 to 6:15 in the evening, where you allow yourself to think freely about all your worries. When anxious thoughts arise during the day, tell yourself, I'll save this for my 6 o'clock slot. Jot it down if needed, then get back to what you're doing. By the time your worry appointment arrives, many of the thoughts will feel less urgent, and the ones that remain can be handled more calmly. This trains your brain not to obsess all day long and contains your overthinking into a controlled space. Of course, we can't ignore the biggest trigger of all, the digital world. Endless notifications, constant comparisons on social media, and hours of scrolling create a perfect storm for mental chaos. This is why digital boundaries are essential. Don't touch your phone for the first 30 minutes after waking. Avoid screens for at least an hour before bed, and create no scroll zones during the day, like meals or commutes. These boundaries carve out stillness in a world that never stops screaming for your attention. Jung often spoke about the need for inner stillness. And in today's world, this is how you create it. Before bed, replace your usual overthinking with a gratitude anchor. Write down 3 things you were grateful for. They don't have to be big: finishing a task, enjoying a good meal, or even the beauty of the sunset. Gratitude shifts your brain from fear and uncertainty to contentment and abundance. Science shows it lowers stress and improves sleep, and Jung would say it balances the psyche by redirecting your focus from shadows to light. Another powerful way to shift out of your head is through mindful movement. Overthinking is a sign of pent-up mental energy, and one of the best ways to release it is by moving your body with awareness. This could be yoga, walking, stretching, or even a few minutes of deep breathing combined with gentle movement. The key is not the intensity, but the presence. Notice your muscles, your breath, your connection to the ground. This grounds your body and stills your mind, opening space for clarity. And finally, here is a practice inspired directly by Jung himself, the one symbol exercise. Each day choose a symbol that reflects your current inner state. It could be a word, a doodle, or even something you find in nature. Maybe you feel scattered, and your symbol is a storm cloud. Maybe you feel calm, and your symbol is a candle. By practicing this, you begin to engage your unconscious mind, the hidden source of much of your overthinking. Over time, you build a symbolic language with yourself, one that allows you to understand and process your inner world without getting lost in endless thought loops. When you put these habits together, you create a powerful toolkit. You don't need to do everything at once. Begin with 1 or 2, perhaps the morning reset ritual and the 5-minute dump. As they become natural, add more. Slowly, you'll construct a daily rhythm where overthinking no longer dominates your life. And remember this: overthinking cannot be stopped by force. You can't simply command yourself to stop thinking. The solution is to create systems that gently guide your mind toward peace. These habits do exactly that. They shift your focus, calm your nervous system, and align your conscious and unconscious mind. Carl Jung reminded us that awakening happens when you look within. These daily practices are not just routines. They are pathways toward that awakening. They are small, simple actions, but when practiced consistently, they hold the power to transform your inner world. So, the next time your thoughts won't stop racing, remember, you are not powerless. You have tools. You can pause, breathe, and return to the present. Overthinking may come knocking, but it no longer has to live in your home. And here's a challenge for you. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, take just 5 minutes to sit in stillness, breathe, and set an intention for your day. Notice how much calmer and clearer you feel by the evening. Sometimes one small habit is all it takes to begin rewriting the story of your mind. So here's the truth. Overthinking isn't a sign that you're broken, lazy, or weak. It's a signal, a whisper from your inner self, asking you to pay attention. And Carl Jung's wisdom shall be sus that the way out isn't by forcing yourself to think positive or drowning your mind in distractions. The way out is inward. When you pause to observe your thoughts instead of fighting them, when you release your obsession with outcomes and bring your focus back to the present, when you explore your shadow instead of running from it, that's when the real shift begins. That's when you awaken. Remember Jung's words: who looks outside, dreams; who looks inside, awakes. The life you want, peace of mind, clarity, confidence, it's not hidden in the future or in the opinions of others. It's already within you, waiting to be uncovered. And the best part? You don't have to master this overnight. Start small. Tonight, Take 5 minutes to sit with your thoughts. Write them down. Notice the patterns. Offer yourself kindness instead of judgment. Each small step is a doorway to freedom. If Sarah, James, Aisha, and Daniel could find peace by applying these principles, so can you. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a spiral at 2 a.m., remember this. You have the power to turn inward, to awaken, and to reclaim your mind. And if this message resonated with you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else who's struggling. Because sometimes, one insight, one exercise, one reminder is all it takes to change everything. Thank you for watching. Take a deep breath, trust yourself, and as Jung would say, awaken.